Welcome to Cancelled Horror Games, a series where I discuss the world of games that are horror and have been cancelled. Kinda self-explanatory, I know. Each episode will cover one game and its story, gameplay, development, and the events that led to the title being cancelled. Who doesn't like getting super excited for a new horror game only to find out that it'll never come out? In this video, we will be looking into Sadness, a game that I had never heard of until researching cancelled horror games for this video. I am really in touch with the horror community. Sadness was a survival horror game in development for the Nintendo Wii and was supposed to be released in March 7 of 2006. It was one of the earliest titles announced for Nintendo's monumental success for console. Sadness would stray away from the violence found in many horror games at the time and instead focus more on psychological horror. Elements of the game would have a heavy association with medical conditions such as narcolepsy, paranoid schizophrenia, and nectophobia, which is better known as an intense fear of the dark. Knowing how games before Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice handled mental health, I am sure this would have gone swimmingly. The live-action announcement trailer shown for the game also revealed it would have a black and white visual aesthetic and would take influence from gothic horror. So far so good. Psychological horror coupled with a unique visual style and influenced by gothic horror, one of the most popular and sinister types of horror in the genre. I can imagine if I was aware of this game, I would have been pretty keen. Then again, I got hyped when I bought a washing machine recently, so I am not a good gauge for that kind of thing. There isn't too much information regarding the plot, but what we do know is that the game would take place in pre-World War I Ukraine and would follow Maria Lengyel, a Victorian-era aristocrat of Polish-Hungarian descent. She is traveling with her son Alexander to a place called Lviv, but on the way there, their train derails in the countryside. Public transport has always sucked. Alex suffers blindness after the accident, but begins to act strange, which progressively became worse throughout the course of the game. Sadness was planned to include a branching storyline with 10 possible endings. The player's actions would determine which ending they got, and I can only assume they would be on the scale of worst to best ending like those found in the original Silent Hill. This sounds pretty damn interesting. I honestly can't recall any game that takes place during this period of time or in that location. And the idea of your son's mental state and personality slowly changing for the worse as the game progresses sounds really unique, and if it was written well, could be very emotional and terrifying. But we don't know exactly how this would have played out, but the core idea could have been very cool. Cooler than one of those bodies in Dharma's apartment. The branching storyline could have also encouraged replayability and could have offered a unique story each time you played. If the game was going to change enough to justify a replay, we will never know, but it does sound pretty promising. Since it was an early title from the Nintendo Wii, the developers wanted to utilize the use of motion controls. And like every game released early in the Wii's life cycle that focused on motion controls, I am sure it would have worked flawlessly and it wouldn't have been a train wreck. The intention was to allow players to be able to use the motion controls to pick up any available item in the game and use it as a weapon. The player could smash a glass bottle and use it as a knife, or break the leg off a chair and use that as a club. But because you can make weapons, that means you have to fight some type of enemy, right? The enemies would have been inspired by Slavic mythology. Creatures from Slavic mythology include Baba Yaga, demons, ghosts, and werewolves. Though not many creatures were officially confirmed to be in the game, drawing from this type of mythology means Sadness could have had some pretty cool monsters not seen in other horror games. When the player ran into a bad guy, they would be able to use the Wii remote to cut the enemy's throats, beat them to death, or use a rope to hang them. Hanging enemies just screams family-friendly Nintendo, don't you think? All of this sounds pretty cool, right? You can't wait to play it. You're getting all hyped up. Well, considering it is featured on my cancelled horror games video, that means it definitely came out and was well reviewed and loved by everyone. Sadness was being developed by Nebris, who partnered with Frontline Studios and Digital Amigos. Frontline would handle the programming of the game while Amigos would take charge of the game's visuals. Nebris was a developer located in Krakow, Poland, and has 4 games on their Wikipedia page, 3 of which were cancelled, so that is a good sign. Though no official release date was confirmed, it was initially reported to release in the 4th quarter of 2007, but once 2007 rolled around, Nebris was in some trouble. They were heavily criticized by game media sites and blogs because there were no playable demos, trailers, or screenshots of the game, even though it was supposed to be released in that year. Rumors began to surface that Sadness was vaporware, which is a product that is announced to the public, but it isn't actually manufactured, but it's also never officially cancelled. These rumors surfaced because Frontline Studios announced they were no longer working on Sadness and quoted artistic differences as the reason behind their departure. After Frontline packed their bags, the game was delayed to 2009. Nebris announced that a new trailer would be coming in late 2007, but that never happened. Next, Nebris said the game would make an appearance at the 2008 Games Developers Conference, but that didn't happen either. Further adding to the pile of shit that was this game, games media outlet Destructoid decided they would no longer cover Sadness after its delay. The outlet questioned whether the game even existed. Nebrus's marketing partner, Fog Studios, said the accusation that the game was vaporware were complete nonsense, and the game was still in development, but they needed a publisher to get it into customers' hands. No one knew exactly what was going on behind the scenes until May 2009, when N Europe interviewed ex-Nebrus developer and scriptwriter for Sadness, Adam Arta Antolsky. Antolsky revealed the troubles the developer had and how it influenced the development of the game. He said the major delays were due to disputes over the design of the game. No one in the studio seemed to be able to decide exactly how the game was going to play. This lack of focus and understanding of what they were doing led to Nebrus to constantly fail to meet deadlines. Antolsky also said there were difficulties between Nebrus and Frontline, which hindered progress of the game. In fact, the only progress Sadness actually experienced was during the first year of development, and the only things that were completed were the script, concept design, and one 3D object. Antolsky said that crucial 3D object was a minecart. You gotta knock out the important stuff early. Considering everybody had heard fuck all about Sadness, N Europe quizzed Antolsky about whether the game would be coming to that year's E3, and he said something that was truly damning for his old company. He said, and I quote, "Nebrus always was better in promoting than making anything." He predicted correctly, as Nebrus did not show up at E3 2009, and when the release date came and went, the developer didn't say a word and Sadness just disappeared. Those hoping to hear something about Sadness would be, well, sad. Nebrus's site has not been updated since their announcement and failed appearance at GDC 2008. The website was shut down in February 2010. N Europe got another scoop in mid-2010 when they reported that one of the game's developers, and I'm going to butcher his name here, Arkadiusz Rikovsky, said the game had been abandoned by the developer, but Nebrus never confirmed or denied this. They did eventually release a game, Double Bloob, in December 2010 on the Wii and the Nintendo DS, which received great reviews. In October 2010, Nebrus stopped developing games altogether and became a coordinator for the European Centre of Games. I have no idea what that is, as I could not find any information about it, but it certainly does sound important. God, I hope it's important, otherwise I sound like a complete idiot. The remaining staff at Nebrus were transferred to Bloober Team, who are another horror developer. They created and actually released titles such as Layers of Fear 1 and 2 and Observer. They are also working on the upcoming Blair Witch title, and you can check out the video I did about that game. It will be in the description and at the end of the video. Sadness could have been an interesting game. Judging by the developer's previous history of game development and the one game they released, it would have probably sucked. But considering the team who used to work there now work for one of the best horror developers in the industry, Sadness did at least have an opportunity to be a unique experience, especially taking the story, gameplay, and unique setting into consideration. It sucks the game never came out, but I'm happy the staff, at least from what I can find, have moved on to better things. And that is the end of the first episode of Cancelled Horror Games. Let me know in the comments if there are any cancelled horror games you want me to look into, and leave a like if you like. See you next time when I talk about another game that sounds cool but we will never get to play. Isn't life just great?